When Green Bones hit the big screen on December 25, 2024, it immediately became a cinematic event that captured the attention of both critics and audiences alike. As the official entry for GMA Pictures to the 2024 Metro Manila Film Festival, marking its 50th year, the film wasn't just another prison drama. It was something deeper, a cinematic work of art that resonated with every Filipino and beyond. Directed by Zig Dulay, a filmmaker known for his ability to weave emotionally complex narratives with social relevance, Green Bones took a genre familiar to many prison dramas and elevated it to new heights, exploring themes of survival, redemption, and the human condition with such depth that it left audiences mesmerized. In a world saturated with films that often follow predictable formulas, Green Bones set itself apart by focusing on the untold, often ignored stories of those who inhabit the shadows of society. With a screenplay from legendary Filipino writer Ricky Lee, known for his mastery of intricate, character-driven stories, and Angeli Atienza, whose fresh approach to screenwriting offered a unique angle on a familiar narrative, Green Bones became an instant cultural touchstone. But what truly sets this film apart isn't just its stellar script or powerhouse performances. It's the way it dives into the heart of the Filipino experience, all while portraying a raw and unfiltered world behind bars. At its core, Green Bones is a raw exploration of life in a Philippine prison, but it goes much deeper than merely showcasing the brutality and violence one might expect. The film is a deep dive into the emotional, psychological, and moral challenges its characters face daily, as well as the difficult choices they must make to survive, both physically and mentally. It introduces us to a cast of multifaceted characters, played by two of the country's finest actors, Trillo and Ruru Madrid, whose performances alone make the film worth watching. Trillo, an actor known for his transformative abilities, takes on the role of a seasoned prisoner who has seen it all. His character is someone who has long since abandoned hope of redemption, his soul scarred by years of brutal experiences inside the prison walls. Trillo's portrayal is nothing short of haunting, as he captures the complexity of a man who still clings to the remnants of his humanity despite his environment. Every look, every gesture, is laden with layers of emotion that make you feel both sympathy and, at times, utter despair for the character. In contrast, Ruru Madrid plays a much younger character, a newcomer to the prison system, whose naivety and optimism are challenged by the harsh realities surrounding him. Madrid's performance is nuanced and layered, and his evolution over the course of the film is compelling to watch. The chemistry between Trillo and Madrid, both as actors and as characters, is electric, offering a dynamic that adds emotional depth and gravitas to the film. The plot itself is a compelling mix of suspense, tension, and drama, with the characters' personal journeys at its heart. The movie begins with the arrival of Madrid's character at the prison, a man whose life has been thrown into disarray after a crime that has left him incarcerated in a world that seems to have no place for him. He meets Trillo's character, a grizzled veteran of the prison system who takes the younger man under his wing. As the two characters form an unlikely bond, they navigate the perilous and often violent prison landscape, constantly weighing their morals against the brutal realities of their situation. However, it's not just about surviving the physical dangers of prison. It's about surviving mentally and emotionally, holding on to some semblance of humanity in a place that seeks to strip it away. Without giving too much away, Green Bones doesn't shy away from twisting the story into dark, unexpected territories. Just when you think you have a grip on where the plot is headed, the film introduces unexpected turns that keep you on the edge of your seat. These twists don't feel cheap or contrived, but rather they serve as a natural extension of the character's growth and the stakes of the story. The tension builds slowly, layer upon layer, until you're fully invested, wondering what will happen next. It's the kind of storytelling that makes you think long after you've seen the film, as the implications of the character's choices linger in your mind. But what makes Green Bones not just another prison movie but a cultural phenomenon is its unflinching look at the larger societal issues that the prison system reflects. The film doesn't just focus on the microcosm of the prison itself. It also highlights the systemic injustices that led the characters there in the first place. It's an exploration of what happens when society fails its most vulnerable, when the legal system punishes without offering redemption or a chance for rehabilitation. There's an inherent critique of the way the justice system works, or often doesn't, in the Philippines, and by extension, it speaks to a broader global issue about the treatment of prisoners and the consequences of a system that prioritizes punishment over rehabilitation. The cinematography in Green Bones perfectly complements the bleakness of the story, capturing the harshness of prison life without ever becoming gratuitous or exploitative. The wide shots of the prison yard, with its towering walls and oppressive atmosphere, evoke a sense of confinement and hopelessness. Meanwhile, the close-ups of the characters' faces, etched with pain, regret, and the occasional spark of hope, are some of the most powerful moments in the film. The muted colors and somber lighting choices reflect the emotional weight of the story, creating a visual style that is as haunting as it is beautiful. The film's visual language is inextricably tied to its emotional impact, and every frame serves to amplify the sense of desperation and longing that pervades the narrative. In addition to its visual storytelling, Green Bones also excels in its sound design and score. The music, subtle yet deeply evocative, mirrors the emotional peaks and valleys of the story, adding an extra layer of depth to the characters' internal struggles. From the quiet, tension-filled moments of silence to the moments when the score swells with intensity, the music amplifies the emotional stakes, creating a cinematic experience that envelopes the viewer. But it's not just about the prison drama or the moral dilemmas the characters face. Green Bones also presents a meditation on what it means to be human, what it means to hold on to your identity in a place that dehumanizes you at every turn. The central question of the film is not just about how these men survive, but how they retain their dignity and sense of self-worth in a world designed to strip that away. The relationships formed within the confines of the prison, whether they're ones of loyalty, betrayal, or fleeting moments of kinship, offer the film's most poignant moments. These relationships show the vulnerability of the human spirit and the desperate need for connection, even in the most unforgiving of environments. This exploration of humanity amidst brutality is what makes Green Bones so extraordinary. The film transcends its genre, becoming more than just a story about crime and punishment. It's a reflection of the human condition, of our capacity for cruelty and compassion, of our ability to adapt and survive, and of our enduring desire for redemption, even in the most hopeless of situations. These are universal themes, and that's why Green Bones has struck such a chord with audiences far beyond the prison walls it depicts. The film's success wasn't just because of its compelling characters or its stunning visuals. It became a cultural phenomenon because it spoke to something deeper, a longing for justice, a desire for redemption, and a collective reckoning with the systems that govern our lives. It made viewers examine their own beliefs about right and wrong, justice and mercy, and how far they would go to preserve their humanity in an unjust world. It raised uncomfortable questions about society's treatment of its most vulnerable members and challenged the audience to think critically about the structures that perpetuate inequality. From its jaw-dropping performances to its thought-provoking themes, Green Bones has proven itself to be a film worth exploring in detail. Its impact is undeniable. It's the kind of film that stays with you, making you reflect long after the credits have rolled. It's a powerful, evocative piece of cinema that forces you to confront difficult truths while offering a glimmer of hope in the darkest of places. If you haven't seen it yet, it's time to immerse yourself in this masterpiece and experience the unforgettable journey that is Green Bones. From the moment the screen fades from black, Green Bones grabs you by the throat and refuses to let go. The harsh clanging of prison doors reverberates through the soundscape, setting a cold, oppressive tone for what is to come. We are introduced to a gritty, unforgiving world, where the concept of hope feels distant, and survival becomes the only currency that matters. The film wastes no time thrusting us into the heart of its story, immediately drawing us into the harsh reality of life behind bars. Our protagonist, played by Ruru Madrid, arrives at the prison, a place that quickly becomes a grim new home for him after a crime that has upended his life. His arrival is a jolting one, full of uncertainty and fear. This is a world he knows nothing about, a world of men hardened by years of captivity, of brutal routines, and of a code that governs every inch of their existence. The stark contrast between his youthful demeanor and the hardened faces of the prisoners is immediate, and it's clear that he's out of his element. Madrid's performance in this opening sequence is a masterclass in vulnerability. You can feel his sense of disorientation, his hesitance, and his naivety as he steps into a life that will soon strip him of any remaining innocence. As he's escorted through the dark, imposing corridors of the prison, we're introduced to Dennis Trillo's character, an older, weathered man whose very presence commands attention. Trillo's character, who we come to learn is named Santiago, has been in prison for years. His reputation precedes him. He is both feared and respected. Santiago is no stranger to the brutal realities of life inside. He's lived through betrayals, violence, and constant survival tactics. But he's also someone who's learned how to play the game, someone who understands that in this world, alliances can mean the difference between life and death. At first, Santiago barely acknowledges Madrid's character, treating him like any other new arrival. But it doesn't take long for Santiago to see something in the young man, an instinct, a spark of humanity that hasn't been completely extinguished by the prison system. Perhaps it's a reflection of his younger self, or perhaps Santiago sees the potential for this new prisoner to be useful in the survival game. Regardless, the older man begins to take an interest in Madrid, offering him advice and, more crucially, protection from the more ruthless inmates. The film's first half is built around this developing dynamic between Santiago and Madrid's character. Their relationship is complicated and layered, a delicate dance between mentor and mentee, survival and morality. Santiago's tough love approach to teaching Madrid how to survive, how to deal with the threats that lurk around every corner, how to navigate the prison's unspoken rules, forms the emotional backbone of the first half of the movie. The older man's hard exterior begins to crack, revealing a deeply conflicted soul who, despite his years of imprisonment, still clings to fragments of humanity. One of the first major moments of tension comes when a group of prisoners, led by a man named Berto, a ruthless and manipulative figure in the prison, begins to target Madrid. Berto sees the young man's innocence as a weakness and attempts to exploit it. It's clear that Berto is not someone to be trifled with. His power in the prison is undeniable, and he doesn't hesitate to use violence to establish dominance. The moment sets the stage for one of the film's key themes, the constant battle for power and control. As Berto's intimidation tactics intensify, we see Madrid begin to change. His face hardens, his resolve strengthens. He's no longer the naive newcomer. He's learning to survive. But it's also clear that he is beginning to lose some of his own soul in the process. Santiago, witnessing the growing threat from Berto, takes it upon himself to teach Madrid a hard lesson about the price of survival in this unforgiving world. In one chilling scene, Santiago guides Madrid through a brutal confrontation with Berto's men, urging him to show no weakness, no hesitation. The fight, though physical, is also a battle for the soul. Santiago is pushing Madrid to make a choice: survive at all costs or risk losing everything, including your humanity. At the same time, we get glimpses into Santiago's own past. Through brief, fragmented flashbacks, we learn that Santiago wasn't always the hardened man we see in the present. Once, he had a family, a life outside of prison. But his fall from grace, his descent into the brutal world of crime and punishment, has left him a shell of the man he once was. These flashbacks not only deepen the character of Santiago, but also set up a poignant contrast with Madrid's character. Santiago's story is a warning, a grim tale of what can happen when you become too entangled in the system. The tragedy of his past hangs over him like a cloud, and it's clear that he's trying to prevent Madrid from making the same mistakes. He knows what lies ahead if Madrid isn't careful. This tension between survival and morality, between the past and the present, drives the narrative forward. Every encounter, every decision carries weight. It's not just about escaping physical harm. It's about holding onto one's sense of self. As the film progresses, the prison itself becomes more than just a backdrop. It's a force in and of itself, constantly testing the boundaries of the characters. The guards, the corrupt system, the constant undercurrent of violence. Everything in the prison is designed to break down the spirit. The film does an excellent job of showing how, Even in a place that seems devoid of hope, moments of kindness and camaraderie can still exist. But the first half of Green Bones also sets the stage for a much larger conflict, one that looms on the horizon. There are rumors that Santiago's time in the prison is running out, that his old connections may be his ticket to freedom. But in a place like this, nothing comes easy. It's a promise of release, of redemption, but it's also a dangerous path, one that could come with deadly consequences. Santiago's internal struggle becomes a key part of the narrative. Should he remain loyal to the few people he trusts, or should he take the opportunity to escape and reclaim his lost life? This moral quandary becomes even more complicated as Madrid grows more attached to him, making it clear that Santiago's decisions will not only affect his own fate but the fate of the younger man as well. Just as we think the first half of the film is reaching its peak, the movie throws in a shocking twist that changes everything. Madrid's trust in Santiago is shaken when he uncovers something from the older man's past, a secret that could unravel the delicate relationship they've built. It's a revelation that forces Madrid to question not only Santiago's intentions but his own sense of loyalty. The moment is pivotal, propelling the story into new, darker territories. What follows is a psychological battle of trust and betrayal, setting the stage for the intense, high-stakes drama that will unfold in the latter half of the film. The first half of Green Bones sets a tone of gritty realism, emotional complexity, and palpable tension. Every character is driven by something deeply personal, whether it's survival, revenge, or redemption. The prison, both a physical space and a metaphor for the character's internal struggles, is a place where nothing is ever as it seems. The relationships are fragile, the power dynamics ever-shifting. But most importantly, the first half of the film establishes a world that feels real, a place where the consequences of every decision are unforgiving, and where no one, not even the strongest, can escape the past. As the screen fades to black, we're left on the edge of our seats, eager to see how the characters will navigate the storm that's building around them. The stakes have been set, the conflicts introduced, and the foreshadowed twists promise to make the second half of Green Bones even more explosive than the first. What will happen when the walls that separate trust and betrayal finally come crashing down? Only time will tell, but for now, the tension is unbearable, and it's clear that Green Bones is far from over. The second half of Green Bones plunges deeper into the darkness of its characters' journeys. Just when the audience thinks the storm has passed, a new, more intense conflict emerges, bringing with it brutal revelations, emotional reckonings, and a series of life-altering choices that set the stage for an explosive, unforgettable climax. As the tension rises, the stakes become even higher, and the choices the characters make will echo far beyond the prison walls. We return to the gritty, suffocating environment of the prison, but this time, things feel different. Santiago, who has long been the mentor, finds his world rocked by the secret Madrid uncovered in the first half of the film. It's a bombshell that shakes their fragile bond, forcing both characters to confront their pasts in ways they hadn't anticipated. Santiago is no stranger to deception. After all, survival inside the prison has required him to manipulate, deceive, and lie. But the depth of the betrayal, the way his past has bled into the present, is a knife to the gut. It's a moment that makes him question everything. The choices he's made, the sacrifices he's endured, and whether he can ever escape the sins that have defined his life. For Madrid, the revelation about Santiago is a brutal one. Having trusted him as both a protector and a guide, this discovery cuts deep. His view of the older man shifts, and with it, the trust that once formed the bedrock of their relationship begins to fracture. It's not just about the lie, it's about everything that came before it, the way Santiago's actions have always been shaped by survival and the cost of that survival. Madrid, who has slowly begun to carve out a sense of identity in this prison world, now has to grapple with his own disillusionment. Is Santiago someone worth following? Or is he simply another pawn in a system that devours everything in its path? The tension between the two characters is palpable. Santiago, whose cold, pragmatic approach to survival has been his lifeline, now has to face the consequences of his choices. He wants to redeem himself, not just for Madrid, but for himself, hoping that the years of darkness will finally give way to a sliver of light. But redemption doesn't come easy in a place like this, and the walls of the prison seem to close in around him. What follows is a series of increasingly desperate moves, as Santiago attempts to protect Madrid from the ever-present dangers that stalk both of them, all while grappling with his own moral decay. The prison itself becomes a battleground for power and survival. Santiago, aware of the growing tension with Berto's faction, knows that they can no longer afford to live on the fringes. The ruthlessness of Berto's gang escalates, pushing both Santiago and Madrid into a corner. Their every move is being watched, every whisper scrutinized by eyes that are always lurking, waiting for an opportunity to strike. This pressure propels both characters into actions that will either secure their survival or destroy them completely. As the simmering tension erupts into full-blown conflict, Santiago and Madrid find themselves involved in a violent confrontation with Berto's men, a bloody battle that leaves no room for mercy. What starts as a desperate attempt to defend themselves soon spirals into chaos. The prison yard becomes a war zone, a place where alliances are shattered and power dynamics shift like the sand beneath their feet. What's striking about this sequence is how it captures the brutal, unrelenting nature of the prison system. There is no honor, no heroism in this fight, only survival and a raw, violent struggle for dominance. Santiago's cold, calculating nature comes to the forefront as he orchestrates their escape from the gang's clutches. But at what cost? The bloodshed leaves both men physically scarred, but it's the emotional toll that proves to be even more devastating. Santiago's world-weary face, as he surveys the aftermath of the fight, reflects not just the weight of the physical wounds, but also the internal damage he's inflicted on himself and on Madrid. Their bond, once strong, is now tested beyond its limits. The younger man, who has been shaped by Santiago's teachings, is forced to confront the ugly truth about the world he's entered. There are no clear lines between right and wrong here, only survival, and in this world, survival can come at the price of your soul. As they attempt to regroup and recover from the violence, another twist arrives that throws their already fragile situation into complete disarray. Santiago is presented with a tempting offer, an opportunity for release from the prison, a chance to escape the torment that has defined his life for so long. It's an offer that could provide him with freedom, a chance to reclaim his lost life and start anew. But this opportunity comes at a steep price. To take it, he must betray those he's come to care about, including Madrid. This moment becomes the crucible of Santiago's character arc. Does he choose freedom at the expense of loyalty, or does he sacrifice his chance at redemption for the sake of the young man who's come to depend on him? The emotional weight of this decision is immense, as it encapsulates the central theme of the film, the moral cost of survival. Santiago's past is a collection of decisions driven by the need to survive. But this choice is different. It's a moment where he has to decide if he can break free from the cycle of betrayal and violence that has defined his existence, or whether he will succumb to the same darkness that has claimed so many before him. Santiago's internal battle is mirrored by Madrid's own evolution. At this point, the younger man has grown and changed in ways that no one, not even Santiago, could have predicted. He is no longer the naive, wide-eyed newcomer he once was. His journey has transformed him. He's learned the harsh realities of prison life, the value of loyalty, and the painful cost of betrayal. He has also learned how to fight not just for survival but for his own sense of justice. Madrid is now faced with his own moral dilemma. Can he continue to follow Santiago, or has the older man's actions betrayed everything he once stood for? The tension between the two characters reaches a breaking point, leading to a heart-wrenching confrontation. The emotional and psychological stakes are higher than ever as they face off against each other, each questioning the other's motives, their own beliefs, and what it means to trust someone in a place where trust is a dangerous, fleeting luxury. What follows is an emotional crescendo, a sequence of revelations, confessions, and finally, a decision that will change both characters' fates forever. Santiago's choice, whether to follow through with his release or remain with Madrid, comes with consequences far beyond what either of them could have anticipated. In a final, desperate attempt to save both of them, Santiago makes a sacrifice that echoes through the film's conclusion, signaling the ultimate resolution of their arcs. In the final moments of the film, as the dust settles and the characters face the aftermath of their actions, Green Bones leaves us with a haunting sense of closure, but also with questions that linger in the air. Santiago, for all his efforts at redemption, is left grappling with the consequences of his choices. Madrid, now a changed man, must carry the weight of his own survival, knowing that the world outside the prison walls will be no less brutal than the one he left behind. The film ends not with the typical sense of victory or hope, but with a sobering realization. In a world defined by violence, the true cost of survival may be more than anyone is willing to pay. As the film Green Bones unfolds, it's not just the prison setting that grips the audience, but the evolution of the characters within it. Every decision, every action, and every word spoken is a reflection of the inner turmoil, the hunger for survival, and the yearning for redemption. In a place where brutality and betrayal are a constant, the characters' journeys come to life through their performances, creating an unforgettable emotional landscape that resonates long after the credits roll. The first and most central of these characters is Santiago, played with unrelenting gravitas by Trillo. From the very first scene, Santiago is a figure who embodies both strength and vulnerability. He's a man who has long been swallowed by the system he's trapped in, and his external toughness acts as a mask for the deeper emotional scars he carries. Santiago's motivations are complex. On the surface, he seeks survival, but beneath that lies a profound struggle for redemption. The audience sees him as someone who has spent years in the prison, not just fighting the physical battles of daily life, but also wrestling with his past, his regrets, his failures, and the pieces of himself he's lost over time. Trillo's performance brings a palpable sense of world weariness to Santiago. His eyes carry the weight of every decision he's ever made, and yet there's a flicker of something deeper, an almost imperceptible longing for change. Santiago's transformation is a slow burn. At first, he appears to be the hardened criminal who's seen it all and has no intention of changing. But as the narrative progresses, we witness his internal conflict, his gradual shift from a man who's accepted his fate to one who dares to hope, even if only for a moment. This transformation is brought to life by Trillo's nuanced portrayal. The quiet intensity of his performance, paired with moments of vulnerability, makes Santiago both a tragic and compelling figure. His arc, of moving from a man resigned to his fate to someone seeking redemption, even at great personal cost, is the heart of the film. Santiago's relationship with Madrid's character serves as the catalyst for much of this transformation. Ruru Madrid's portrayal of the younger man adds a crucial layer to the narrative. Madrid enters the prison with wide eyes, full of naivety, and a sense of righteousness that soon begins to fade as the brutal realities of the system are laid bare before him. What Madrid's character represents is innocence, the part of a person that believes in the possibility of justice, of right and wrong. As he grows and adapts to the prison's oppressive environment, Madrid transforms into someone more hardened, more pragmatic, but still clinging to pieces of his past self. It's this emotional tug-of-war between the innocence he loses and the strength he gains that makes Madrid's arc so compelling. At first, Madrid is shaped by his mentor, Santiago, and the wisdom he imparts. His motivations, however, are more internal and reflective. He's trying to hold on to the man he was before prison, struggling to find a sense of identity in a world that demands so much from him. Madrid's transformation is one of self-discovery, but it's also a painful one. It's not just about survival for him. It's about understanding how much he's willing to change, and at what cost. His arc, therefore, is not only about physical transformation but about a battle of morals. Can he remain true to his beliefs in a world so broken? Madrid's performance, with its mix of vulnerability and budding strength, allows the audience to see this gradual change unfold. His quiet moments of reflection, often conveyed through subtle expressions, are as telling as his more action-packed scenes. It's through Madrid's eyes that the audience witnesses the true cost of the prison system. The relationship between Santiago and Madrid is the core emotional anchor of the film. It's one that both heals and fractures over time, with both men relying on each other for survival, but also constantly questioning one another's motives. There's a father-son dynamic at play, a mentorship built on trust, survival, and mutual need. Yet, as secrets and betrayals emerge, that trust begins to erode. The film is unflinching in its portrayal of this relationship's complexities, the way both characters, at different points, push each other toward their limits, only to pull back at the last second, unsure if they can truly rely on one another. While Santiago and Madrid are the film's primary focus, Green Bones introduces a rich ensemble of supporting characters who help to build the complex world in which these two characters operate. These figures are not mere background players. They are catalysts in their own right, each contributing to the unfolding of the central narrative. Berto, played by a menacing supporting actor, stands as the primary antagonist within the prison. He's the embodiment of the brutal and unforgiving power dynamics that control life behind bars. Berto isn't just a physical threat, he's an ideological one as well. He represents a harsh and cynical worldview, one that believes the only way to survive in this world is to embrace violence, to give in to the system and become a part of it. His power over the other inmates is undeniable, and his ability to manipulate the prison's social structure forces Santiago and Madrid to confront the darker parts of themselves. Berto's presence is like a shadow that constantly looms over them, threatening to crush any semblance of hope. His conflict with Santiago and Madrid becomes a battle for dominance, one that reveals the lengths to which people will go when cornered. But Green Bones doesn't just focus on the characters who are in opposition to our leads. It also gives space to those who exist on the margins of the narrative, supporting characters who shape the emotional core of the story. Among these is Lena, a fellow inmate who, though not as prominently featured, provides a mirror to Santiago's and Madrid's journey. Lena represents a more subdued version of survival. She's neither as hardened as Berto nor as naive as Madrid, but rather someone who has found a way to maintain her sense of self in the face of overwhelming adversity. Her brief yet poignant moments with both Santiago and Madrid offer a reflection of the different paths survival can take. She's a quiet force, embodying resilience without the need for violence or brute force. Lena's role serves to highlight the different ways people in the prison navigate the system, some through brutality, some through cunning, and some through emotional fortitude. The guards, too, play a significant role in this narrative. Their presence, while often silent, looms large in the background, serving as a reminder of the ever-watchful eyes that govern the lives of the inmates. They aren't mere antagonists in the traditional sense, but instead represent the oppressive, dehumanizing force of the prison system itself. The guards' indifferent cruelty underscores the bleakness of the environment, showing just how powerless the inmates are in the face of an institution that controls every aspect of their lives. The occasional moments where Santiago or Madrid tries to push back against this authority feel more like a futile attempt than acts of defiance, reinforcing the idea that in this world, every small victory comes at a great cost. The film's intricate character work reaches its apex in the final sequences, where all of these relationships converge, and the true weight of the decisions each character has made becomes evident. Santiago, for all his attempts to redeem himself, finds that the past will always catch up with him. His final moments, marked by the ultimate sacrifice, bring his arc full circle. It's a heartbreaking resolution, one that sees him at the mercy of the very system he tried to escape. And yet, even in his final moments, Trillo's performance adds layers of complexity to Santiago's journey. It's not just about survival anymore. It's about what happens when survival no longer feels worth the cost. Madrid, now a product of both his own choices and Santiago's influence, is left to reckon with the legacy of their relationship. His transformation from naive young man to hardened survivor is not just a physical one. It's emotional and philosophical. The loss of Santiago, both as a mentor and a father figure, marks a turning point in Madrid's character arc, a shift from hope to resignation. But there's also a spark of something else, perhaps the beginning of a new kind of hope, a recognition that survival, though difficult, doesn't have to come at the cost of one's humanity. The film's ending leaves that door slightly ajar, offering a flicker of possibility in a world that seems intent on crushing everything good within it. In the end, Green Bones is a film about the fragility of survival and the emotional weight of choices. Santiago and Madrid, as two sides of the same coin, encapsulate the core struggle of the story. How far are we willing to go to survive? And at what point does survival stop being worth it? Through the depth and complexity of its characters, the film invites us to wrestle with these questions long after the final scene fades to black. As the credits roll on green bones, the audience is left with more than just the emotional weight of the characters' journeys. Upon reflection, the film reveals itself as a treasure trove of subtle details, cultural references, and layers of foreshadowing, all woven together with precision and care. For those paying close attention, the film offers a wealth of hidden elements that enrich the story, adding depth and nuance to an already complex narrative. The first subtle layer that many may miss upon their initial viewing is the symbolic use of the prison itself. At first glance, it's simply a harsh, brutal backdrop, a setting for the violence and despair that the characters endure. But upon further reflection, the prison becomes a powerful metaphor for the cycle of survival and moral decay. The design of the prison itself, with its cold, imposing walls and narrow, suffocating corridors, mirrors the inner struggles of the characters. This architectural detail is a direct representation of the psychological prison that Santiago, Madrid, and others find themselves trapped in. Every turn, every barred window, is a reminder of their own internal confinement, a place where they can't escape their pasts, no matter how much they yearn for freedom. For a film set so heavily within the confines of a prison, Green Bones cleverly uses the concept of escape, not just in the literal sense but also symbolically. The most notable visual cue here is the recurring motif of doors, gates, and windows. Every time a character contemplates escape, it's often in relation to a door or window. Santiago, in particular, is frequently shown looking out through these openings, as if the mere act of looking beyond the walls could somehow provide him with a sense of freedom. But the film makes it clear that, just like the physical walls of the prison, the emotional and moral walls the characters have built around themselves are not so easily breached. Even when Santiago is offered a chance for release, it becomes a bittersweet realization that freedom comes at the cost of sacrificing his soul. This tension between physical freedom and emotional imprisonment is one of the more poignant symbolic elements that runs throughout the film. In the first half of the movie, one of the most subtle yet effective foreshadowing elements occurs during a seemingly innocuous scene where Santiago teaches Madrid how to navigate the social dynamics of the prison. There's a passing reference to the green bones, a term used by the inmates to describe those who are new to the system, still green and inexperienced, like fresh bones being added to the pile. It's a moment that seems almost like a passing joke, but the phrase holds a darker resonance as the film progresses. The term green bones comes to symbolize not just the inexperience of the young but the cost of survival itself. It's a brutal and stark metaphor for what it takes to endure the horrors of the prison system. Madrid, the film's primary focal point, starts as a green bone, but as the story unfolds, he's forced to shed that innocence in the pursuit of survival. The phrase, then, becomes a harbinger of the moral compromises and painful transformations that await him. As the film shifts toward the more intense confrontations in the second half, the filmmakers also inject subtle cultural references that ground the story in a particular Filipino context. These references not only enrich the narrative, but also add layers of cultural specificity that would resonate with Filipino viewers, offering deeper meanings to the broader audience. One of the most striking instances of this is the use of Filipino proverbs and idiomatic expressions, which are peppered throughout the dialogue. These proverbs, though they may seem like mere pieces of everyday conversation, often carry deeper meanings that reflect the themes of survival, betrayal, and the human condition. For instance, in a tense moment where Santiago is forced to confront his past, he mutters the Filipino saying, "Ang hindi maranong lumingin sa pinagmulan, ay hindi makararating sa pararunan." He who does not know how to look back at where he came from will never get to where he's going. This line, seemingly casual, speaks volumes about Santiago's journey. He's a man trapped by his own past, unable to escape the shadows that follow him. His inability to reconcile with his origins and the mistakes he's made is what keeps him bound to the prison. Not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally. It's an elegant piece of foreshadowing, hinting that his journey toward redemption can't progress until he confronts his past mistakes. something that Madrid will also learn the hard way. Another cultural reference that serves as both foreshadowing and character development is the way Santiago and Madrid's relationship mirrors that of traditional Filipino mentor-student dynamics. In Filipino culture, the figure of the tati, father, is revered, and the relationship between mentor and mentee often transcends the professional realm to become deeply personal. Santiago, in many ways, assumes the role of a surrogate father to Madrid, offering not just survival skills but wisdom passed down through hardship. However, the emotional complexity of their bond adds depth to the traditional mentor trope. It becomes evident that Santiago's failure to be the protective father figure he wants to be is at the core of his internal struggle. His inability to fully guide Madrid is a reflection of his own failure as a man, unable to protect anyone, not even himself. In terms of visual Easter eggs, the film is peppered with small yet impactful details that tie back to Filipino identity and the national psyche. One such detail is the recurring use of symbolic objects from Filipino culture, which appear in the most unexpected places. For example, in the background of several scenes, viewers can spot traditional Filipino items, such as an old sikad, manual tricycle, or a tabo, a water dipper often used in Filipino households. These items, though seemingly insignificant in the context of the prison, serve as a nod to the Filipino concept of bayanihan, community spirit. The presence of these objects suggests that, despite the inescapable violence and brutality of the prison, the Filipino spirit of unity and familial bonds is never entirely extinguished. Even in the darkest of circumstances, there is an unspoken hope that one can still find solidarity, even in the most unlikely places. Another clever Easter egg comes in the form of a small but significant gesture during a scene where Madrid faces off with Berto's gang. As Madrid fights to assert his position, he unknowingly adopts a stance that mirrors the iconic image of a Filipino revolutionary hero, Andres Bonifacio. This visual callback doesn't just reinforce the themes of resistance and rebellion that pervade the film but also subtly positions Madrid as a symbol of resistance against a system that seeks to oppress and break him. It's a moment where the past and present collide, where Madrid becomes not just an individual fighting for survival, but also an embodiment of a larger cultural and historical fight for justice. One of the more poignant hidden details in the film is the way the prison walls reflect the mental and emotional states of the characters. This subtle use of visual storytelling is most evident in a series of scenes where the lighting shifts dramatically as the characters go through moments of extreme emotional turbulence. When Santiago faces his toughest choices, whether to betray Madrid or remain loyal, the shadows cast across his face grow longer, more oppressive, reflecting the growing weight of his internal conflict. These visual cues are subtle but deeply effective, allowing the audience to feel the claustrophobia of Santiago's psyche as he is suffocated by the consequences of his decisions. In one of the final sequences, where Santiago and Madrid are forced to confront the very real possibility of betrayal, the film subtly incorporates a moment of stillness. As the two men stand face to face, the camera lingers on a cracked piece of glass hanging on the wall, catching the light at just the right angle. This small but significant detail becomes a visual metaphor for the fragile trust between them. It foreshadows the inevitable shattering of their bond, offering a sense of inevitability. The image of the broken glass serves as a warning to the viewer. Nothing is as it seems, and the fragile ties that bind the characters are moments away from unraveling. Finally, for those with a keen eye, Green Bones offers a handful of Easter eggs that nod to its Filipino cinematic heritage. In several subtle references, there are callbacks to the country's iconic prison dramas and crime thrillers, films that have shaped the landscape of Filipino cinema. These moments, though not overtly highlighted, serve as a tribute to the genre's legacy and remind the audience that Green Bones is not just a film in isolation but part of a larger cultural tradition. The use of traditional Filipino music in the background of certain scenes, soft, melancholic tunes that invoke a sense of nostalgia, also contributes to the film's deeper connection to the country's cinematic past, providing a haunting soundtrack to the emotional turmoil unfolding on screen. Creating Green Bones was no simple feat, and the journey to bring this film to life is as intense and fascinating as the story that unfolds on screen. As with any film that delves into such raw and emotional material, the production faced its fair share of challenges, surprises, and even some unexpected controversies that became part of the movie's legacy. From innovative choices in set design to behind-the-scenes drama involving the cast and crew, Green Bones' production history is a tale of perseverance, creativity, and occasional unpredictability. The first and perhaps most noticeable challenge for the filmmakers was creating an authentic prison environment that didn't feel like a stereotypical portrayal of a Filipino correctional facility. Director Zig Dulay and his team were determined to avoid the typical clichés of prison dramas. In many Filipino films about incarceration, the prison setting is often exaggerated or portrayed with over-the-top depictions of violence, creating an environment that feels somewhat cartoonish. Dulay, known for his attention to detail and commitment to realism, wanted Green Bones to feel gritty and real, an environment where the viewer could feel the suffocating tension of the prison, but also one that accurately reflected the social and political realities of the Philippine justice system. The production team initially faced a significant challenge in locating an authentic prison set. They scouted various locations in the Philippines, but most either didn't meet their aesthetic vision or were considered too dangerous due to real-life security concerns. Eventually, they decided to build the prison set from scratch, which proved to be a monumental task. The team constructed every single part of the prison, from the cells to the narrow hallways, all designed to evoke a sense of claustrophobia and confinement. The attention to detail was extraordinary, with even the smallest aspects of the set reflecting the harsh reality of life behind bars. For instance, every cell featured worn, rusted bars and peeling paint that made it feel like a place where time had stopped, where the inmates had been trapped for far too long, both physically and mentally. But what made this decision even more difficult was the time pressure. The film's shooting schedule was tight, and building a prison from scratch wasn't a task that could be rushed. The crew worked around the clock, pushing their limits to create a space that would not only be visually authentic, but emotionally potent for the actors. There were moments when construction delays threatened to throw off the filming schedule, but the team pressed on, determined to create a space where the tension between the characters would come to life in a way that felt visceral and genuine. The success of the set design was evident when the film was released. It was more than just a backdrop for the story. The prison itself became a character, embodying the very themes of confinement, hopelessness, and survival that lay at the core of the film. Alongside the physical challenges, there was the emotional weight of the story to consider. Green Bones dives deep into the psyche of its characters, exploring themes of guilt, redemption, and the moral cost of survival. This required an extraordinary amount of emotional labor from the cast, particularly from Trillo, who played Santiago. Trillo, known for his versatility as an actor, found himself pushed to new emotional extremes in his portrayal of the hardened yet vulnerable prisoner. There was a particular scene that would become one of the most emotionally taxing for Trillo, a pivotal moment where his character is forced to make an unthinkable decision that alters the course of the narrative. The emotional intensity of the scene meant that Trillo had to draw on deep personal experiences, reflecting on his own fears, regrets, and moments of moral conflict to bring the character to life in such a raw and authentic way. Interestingly, Trillo has shared that he struggled to maintain his emotional distance from his character during filming. Santiago is a character burdened by regret, and for Trillo, portraying this sense of guilt was incredibly draining. There was one particular moment during a long day of filming when Trillo became visibly exhausted from the emotional weight of his role. The director, Dulay, noticing the toll it was taking, decided to give Trillo a brief respite. They shifted to a lighter scene, one that would allow Trillo to momentarily step out of character. In the middle of filming, the cast and crew even staged a surprise birthday celebration for Trillo to lift his spirits. The camaraderie of the set and the close-knit nature of the cast helped Trillo recover emotionally, and he was able to continue with the demanding scenes. The bond between Trillo and his co-stars, especially Ruru Madrid, played a pivotal role in maintaining morale throughout the production. Their on-screen chemistry was forged in the fires of long, exhausting days, and their mutual respect for one another allowed the complex relationship between Santiago and Madrid to come across with such authenticity. Speaking of Madrid, his journey on set was equally transformative. Although he was relatively new to high-intensity drama roles compared to Trillo, Madrid threw himself into his character with an intensity that surprised even the most seasoned crew members. Madrid revealed in interviews that, early on in the filming process, he found it difficult to connect emotionally to the darker aspects of his character. His character, a young man struggling with the corrupting influence of the prison system, required Madrid to tap into a vulnerability that he hadn't fully explored before in his acting career. To get into character, Madrid immersed himself in real accounts from former inmates and prison activists, learning about their experiences and listening to their stories. This commitment to authenticity helped him deliver a layered performance that conveyed not only the character's transformation but also the emotional strain that came with surviving in such a hostile environment. Despite the film's success, the production also faced some unexpected controversies, most notably in regard to the portrayal of the Filipino prison system. There were heated discussions both before and after the film's release about whether the movie accurately depicted the reality of Philippine prisons, or whether it exaggerated certain aspects for dramatic effect. Some viewers felt that Green Bones painted too bleak a picture of the justice system, potentially casting a negative light on the country's correctional facilities. The filmmakers were quick to respond, stating that their goal was never to criticize the system, but to showcase the human cost of a broken system. They argued that the film sought to offer a nuanced exploration of the people trapped within it, rather than reducing them to mere victims or villains. A particularly notable piece of behind-the-scenes trivia revolves around the film's music and sound design. The film score, composed by a rising star in the Filipino music scene, used traditional Filipino instruments to enhance the authenticity of the setting and to create an emotionally charged atmosphere. One of the most striking musical moments comes in the form of a haunting lullaby, sung by a minor character early in the film. This lullaby, though barely audible in the background, becomes a recurring motif throughout the story. It represents the innocence that is lost in the brutal environment of the prison. The sound designer, who spent countless hours working on the score, has stated that the lullaby was inspired by the traditional Filipino practice of singing to children in the most trying circumstances, often as a way to provide comfort amidst turmoil. The use of this lullaby, as well as the incorporation of indigenous instruments, adds a layer of cultural authenticity to the film and resonates deeply with Filipino audiences, who recognize the emotional depth embedded in these sounds. There's also an intriguing story about a particular scene that nearly didn't make it into the final cut. It was one of the most suspenseful moments in the film, an intense, nearly silent confrontation between Santiago and Berto in the prison yard. The scene was originally filmed with little dialogue, relying heavily on body language and subtle facial expressions to convey the tension. However, during the editing process, the filmmakers found that the scene wasn't landing as they had hoped. The lack of words, while effective in theory, wasn't translating emotionally. After much deliberation, the team decided to rework the scene by adding a few carefully chosen lines of dialogue that would punctuate the tension without undermining its subtlety. The final version of the scene became one of the most iconic moments of the film, showing how a simple shift in approach could turn what seemed like an insignificant exchange into a dramatic, heart-pounding confrontation. And, of course, no behind-the-scenes exploration would be complete without mentioning some of the quirky, unexpected moments that made the filming experience memorable. On one particularly grueling day, as the crew was shooting in one of the darker corners of the prison set, the actors and crew were faced with a particularly unwelcome surprise. A stray cat had made its way onto the set and decided to make the prison its new home. The crew, exhausted and running on minimal sleep, were less than thrilled by the feline's appearance, especially considering the tense atmosphere that the scene required. However, the cat quickly became a good luck charm for the crew. It would often show up just before the most difficult scenes, seemingly offering a moment of levity amidst the tension. The crew dubbed the cat Kali, after the Filipino goddess of destruction and transformation. The presence of Kali became a running joke throughout the production, lightening the mood during stressful moments. Green Bones' journey from script to screen is filled with stories of creativity, resilience, and the unpredictable nature of filmmaking. Every challenge, from building an authentic prison set to pushing the actors to their emotional limits, contributed to the final product, a film that's as raw and unforgettable as the story it tells. And despite the controversies, the surprising moments, and the seemingly trivial anecdotes, it's clear that Green Bones is a film that has left a lasting impression on both its creators and its viewers. The behind-the-scenes journey may have been as tumultuous as the world inside the prison, but in the end, it gave birth to a powerful cinematic experience, one that will be remembered for years to come. Every great film has moments that transcend the ordinary, leaving an indelible mark on the audience. Green Bones is no exception. Its most impactful scenes aren't just pivotal in terms of plot development. They're woven into the very fabric of the film's emotional and thematic core. As we journey through the tense, emotionally charged world of Green Bones, there are moments that resonate far beyond their immediate context. These scenes are where the characters come alive, where the stakes are raised, and where the audience is invited to peer into the depths of human struggle, moral conflict, and survival. It's these key moments that ultimately shape the film into the powerful cinematic experience it is. The opening sequence of Green Bones is a perfect example of the film's ability to immediately grab the audience's attention. It begins with a quiet, almost serene moment that contrasts starkly with the prison's violence-filled future. We first meet Santiago, Dennis Trillo, as he walks through the corridors of the prison, surrounded by the hum of everyday life behind bars. There's an unsettling calm to the scene, as if everything is holding its breath, waiting for something to explode. The tension is palpable, as if the air itself is thick with unspoken histories and impending conflict. Santiago's measured movements and the softness of his gaze suggest a man who's seen it all but is no less weighed down by the gravity of his existence. This moment serves as the perfect setup for the emotional journey that will unfold, inviting the viewer into a world where everything is fragile, where no one is truly free, not even from their own choices. What's especially striking about this opening sequence is how it manages to foreshadow the central conflict of the film without giving too much away. Santiago's stoic demeanor isn't just a product of his environment. It's a defense mechanism, a way of keeping the emotional and psychological turmoil at bay. In this one quiet scene, the film captures the essence of Santiago's internal battle. A man who, despite all of his hardened exterior, is still very much trapped within the walls of his own mind, struggling with guilt, regret, and the burden of past mistakes. It's a masterclass in subtle filmmaking, setting the tone for the intense emotional unraveling that will follow. One of the most significant emotional turning points in the film occurs when Santiago is forced to confront his past during an intense flashback sequence. In this scene, we learn about Santiago's history, his role in a crime that altered the course of his life and ultimately led him to prison. The sequence is crafted with haunting precision, using minimal dialogue and a slow, deliberate pacing to allow the emotional weight to settle in. The camera lingers on Santiago's face as memories resurface, and we see his inner turmoil unfold through the smallest of gestures. A slight twitch of the jaw, a clenched fist, a deep, troubled sigh. This is where the film truly excels, as it taps into the complexities of guilt, redemption, and the human need for absolution. What makes this flashback so powerful is how it transcends the typical prison drama trope of tragic backstory. This isn't just a moment for audience sympathy or exposition. It's a pivotal part of the character's emotional arc, providing a glimpse into the forces that have shaped Santiago and setting the stage for his eventual transformation. The scene serves as a reminder that, in a film about survival, it's not just the external forces that weigh on the characters. It's their inner demons, the things they can't escape, no matter how far they run or how hard they fight. This makes Santiago's journey toward redemption feel not just inevitable but necessary. The audience becomes invested not only in his physical freedom but in his quest to confront the things that have bound him for so long. The film's emotional depth is further explored through the complicated relationship between Santiago and Madrid, Ruru Madrid. Their interactions are some of the most heart-wrenching and nuanced moments in the film, and their dynamic evolves in fascinating ways over the course of the story. In one particularly tense scene, Santiago and Madrid find themselves at an impasse, forced to reckon with the cost of survival and loyalty within the prison walls. The rawness of this exchange is both a culmination of their respective journeys and a catalyst for the turning point that follows. The emotional stakes of this scene are heightened by the weight of the choices they face. Santiago, having become a mentor of sorts to Madrid, sees the younger man as a mirror of his former self, someone still untainted by the brutal realities of the prison system. However, this scene reveals the limits of Santiago's ability to shield Madrid from the inevitable darkness of the world they inhabit. Santiago's desire to protect Madrid clashes with the harsh realities of the prison's power dynamics, forcing him to make a choice that cuts to the very core of his moral compass. What's particularly striking about this moment is how the film refuses to offer easy answers. There's no clear villain, no perfect hero. In this exchange, both men are flawed, bound by the same system that seeks to break them. The scene doesn't rely on traditional tropes of good versus evil, but instead delves into the complexities of survival, loyalty, and moral ambiguity. Santiago's actions in this moment, while driven by a desire to protect Madrid, also reveal the depths of his own desperation and resignation. It's a powerful exploration of how the prison system, with its inherent corruption and violence, warps the morality of its inhabitants. This scene becomes a turning point not just in their relationship, but in the film's broader exploration of the human cost of survival in a dehumanizing system. Then, of course, there's the scene that stands as Greenbone's most emotionally devastating moment, the prison riot. This sequence, which occurs midway through the film, is a culmination of all the film's tension, both external and internal, finally erupting. What makes this scene so unforgettable is how it builds slowly, almost imperceptibly, into chaos. The violence in the riot is brutal and unflinching, but it's not the bloodshed that lingers in the mind. It's the desperation and hopelessness that permeate the scene. There's a suffocating sense of inevitability that hangs over the prisoners, as if their violence is the only way they can reclaim some measure of control in an environment that's designed to strip them of their humanity. In this scene, the film pushes its characters and its audience into a space where survival becomes a primal instinct, and the boundaries between right and wrong, loyalty and betrayal, are blurred. For Santiago, this moment is the culmination of everything he has feared. The prison riot forces him to confront the fact that there's no easy escape from this world, not for him or for Madrid. The consequences of their choices have come to a head, and the bloodshed that follows becomes a testament to the sacrifices they must make to navigate this perilous world. The emotional weight of the riot is felt not just through the characters, but also through the film's visual language. The cinematography takes on a raw, handheld quality during the riot, with the camera shaking as though to mirror the chaos unfolding on screen. This technique immerses the audience in the violence, pulling them into the emotional and physical turmoil of the scene. The film's score, which up until this point had been hauntingly minimal, swells with intensity, mirroring the escalating tension and emotional stakes. It's a cinematic moment that feels almost primal, forcing the viewer to grapple with the question of survival at any cost and what that means for one's humanity. After the riot, the film takes a quieter, more reflective turn, as the characters must deal with the aftermath of the chaos. It's here that the emotional complexity of Green Bones truly shines. In the aftermath of the violence, Santiago and Madrid face the irreversible consequences of their actions. The brutality of the riot has changed them, just as it has changed the prison itself. The camera lingers on the characters' faces as they process the toll it has taken, showing us not just their physical exhaustion, but the emotional scars that have been left behind. The silence in these moments is deafening, as if the weight of what has transpired is too much to speak about. The quiet reflection serves as a sharp contrast to the earlier, frenzied violence, reminding us that, in a world where survival is the ultimate goal, there are no true winners. But perhaps the most poignant moment in the film comes toward the end, when Santiago finally faces the full extent of his past and the choices he's made. In the film's closing sequence, we see him once again walking through the prison corridors. But this time, something has changed. He's no longer the man we met at the beginning of the film, distant and emotionally closed off. The prison, which once seemed like a suffocating cage, now feels more like a reflection of his internal journey. He's finally come to terms with his past, no longer haunted by the ghosts of his mistakes. This moment, while bittersweet, offers a sense of closure, a realization that redemption is not something to be granted, but something that must be earned through acceptance and change. In a film so deeply concerned with the themes of survival, guilt, and redemption, these key moments form the backbone of Green Bones. Each scene not only pushes the narrative forward but also serves as a reflection of the film's deeper thematic concerns. Through careful pacing, emotional depth, and masterful direction, Green Bones creates an unforgettable cinematic experience, one that challenges its audience to reflect on the true cost of survival and the humanity that remains even in the most brutal of circumstances. These moments, unforgettable in their emotional resonance, shape the film into something much more than just a story of life behind bars. They make it a story about the human soul and its capacity for both destruction and redemption. Behind every great film is a team of creators pushing boundaries and testing the limits of what can be achieved with their craft. Green Bones stands out as an example of how creativity, technical mastery, and raw emotion can come together to form something truly remarkable. This cinematic gem didn't just rely on compelling performances and a strong narrative. It also broke new ground in terms of its technical achievements, design innovations, and a seamless blend of storytelling elements that elevated the film beyond what was expected from a typical prison drama. One of the most notable aspects of Green Bones is its visual approach. From the moment the film begins, it becomes clear that the filmmakers were determined to make every frame count. The movie's visual style is marked by a rawness and grit that mirrors the story's emotional weight. Director Zig Dulay, who has a reputation for his intimate, atmospheric filmmaking, made conscious decisions to evoke a sense of confinement and claustrophobia, a feeling that suffocates both the characters and the audience. The set design, for instance, plays an integral role in setting the film's tone. The prison, though entirely a set, feels like a living, breathing character in itself. The color palette is muted, dominated by shades of gray and brown that mirror the oppressive atmosphere of the place. There is very little room for light in this world. The cinematography often frames characters in small, cramped spaces, making them appear trapped both physically and psychologically. What's particularly interesting about the film's look is the decision to shoot much of it using handheld cameras. While this technique is commonly used in gritty films to create a sense of immediacy, Green Bones uses it in an almost immersive way. The camera moves with the characters, getting close to their faces, showing their sweat, their eyes filled with fear and determination. This approach draws the viewer deeper into the world of the film, making the emotions of the characters feel immediate and palpable. During intense moments, like the prison riot or scenes where characters must make life-altering decisions, the camera's movements mimic the chaos unfolding around them. But it's not just the riot that makes this technique so effective. It's also used in quieter, more introspective moments, heightening the emotional resonance of the scenes. A close-up shot of Santiago, Dennis Trillo, walking through a hallway, his footsteps echoing, makes us feel his isolation and the burden he carries. Every movement, no matter how small, is heightened through this technique, allowing us to experience the weight of each decision, each moment, alongside the characters. The lighting choices also play a significant role in shaping the tone of Green Bones. A stark contrast is drawn between the oppressive, dimly lit interior of the prison and the flashes of light that appear during moments of emotional revelation. The film often uses harsh, unnatural lighting, casting long shadows that make the prison feel even more suffocating. There's a constant tension between light and darkness, reflecting the moral ambiguity of the characters' choices. No one is truly innocent or guilty. Everyone exists in a gray area, struggling to survive. The lighting, in many ways, visualizes this complexity, making the world feel as morally uncertain as it is physically oppressive. But perhaps one of the most innovative aspects of Green Bones is the sound design. While most films rely on music and score to create an emotional atmosphere, Green Bones stands apart by allowing the soundscape itself to guide the viewer's emotional journey. The use of ambient sound is extraordinary, capturing the hum of the prison, the clink of chains, the murmur of voices echoing down the hallways, the distant clatter of metal. These sounds are so integral to the film's atmosphere that they feel almost as important as the dialogue. There are moments where the ambient noise drowns out the characters' words, placing us fully in their world, where the struggle for survival is louder than anything else. The film's sound designer, who worked tirelessly to create this immersive experience, intentionally leaned into the subtlety of sound. For example, in moments of intense tension, like when Santiago is facing a moral dilemma or when the prisoners are inching toward the inevitable riot, the sound begins to stretch, creating an almost suffocating silence. Then, as the tension breaks, the soundtrack explodes with chaos, blaring alarms, shouting voices, the sounds of shuffling bodies, and suddenly, the viewer is thrust into the whirlwind of violence and confusion. These sound choices create a seamless flow between the emotional and physical chaos of the story, ensuring that every audience member feels the weight of the characters' internal and external battles. A pivotal part of the film's success lies in its seamless integration of narrative and visuals. There's a profound connection between what we see on screen and what the characters are going through emotionally. The scenes themselves are often simple in terms of action, but the way the filmmakers use visual cues to reflect the characters' internal struggles is what sets Green Bones apart. For example, when Santiago is grappling with his past, the visual cues, like the reflective surfaces he often finds himself staring into, the narrow corridors he walks through, suggest a man trapped not just physically but mentally. His past is always just behind him, lurking in the shadows. The way the camera lingers on these reflections emphasizes that Santiago is constantly haunted, unable to fully escape his memories. It's these kinds of small details that elevate the film's storytelling, making the visual experience as important as the narrative itself. But technical achievements aren't just limited to the visuals and sound. The practical challenges of filming a movie like Green Bones were numerous. The production had to recreate the complex environment of a prison while balancing the need for narrative freedom. One of the most difficult hurdles was creating the realistic prison riot that serves as one of the most significant moments of the film. While the riot itself was choreographed with the precision of an action film, the filmmakers wanted it to feel grounded in the reality of the prison system. They worked closely with former correctional officers and prison experts to ensure the depiction was both brutal and authentic, staying true to the claustrophobic, chaotic nature of such an event. The cast underwent intensive rehearsals to get the fight choreography right, with actors like Trillo and Ruru Madrid working tirelessly to get every movement in sync. The riot scene, which was shot in a single, long take, was particularly difficult to pull off. Not only did it require extensive planning to make sure all of the actors and extras were in the right places at the right time, but it also required the set to be designed with perfect precision to allow for the frenetic movement required by the scene. Despite the complexities involved, the result was a powerful, harrowing sequence that conveyed the horror of a prison riot without ever feeling staged. The physical demands on the actors were another challenge that came with filming Green Bones. The intense physicality of many of the prison scenes, coupled with the emotional depth of the story, meant that the cast had to be in peak physical and mental condition. The rigorous training for the action sequences, whether it was hand-to-hand combat or the physical exhaustion required during scenes of imprisonment, was grueling, but it paid off in the end. The film's physical realism is undeniable. Every punch thrown, every struggle, feels authentic, as though the actors aren't just performing but truly living the violence and tension that is part of their daily existence in prison. This level of detail extended to the costumes and makeup as well. Every aspect of the film's design was aimed at grounding it in reality. The prisoners' worn, tattered clothes were carefully chosen to reflect the lack of individuality in the prison system. The makeup, subtle but effective, was used to emphasize the characters' weariness. Faces were streaked with dirt and sweat, their eyes hollowed by the mental strain of prison life. These elements work together to reinforce the central theme of the film, that survival in such an environment requires a deep sacrifice of one's humanity. These details are not just background, they're visual markers of the internal and external struggles faced by the characters. Behind every great film is a team of creators pushing boundaries and testing the limits of what can be achieved with their craft. Green Bones stands out as an example of how creativity, technical mastery, and raw emotion can come together to form something truly remarkable. This cinematic gem didn't just rely on compelling performances and a strong narrative. It also broke new ground in terms of its technical achievements, design innovations, and a seamless blend of storytelling elements that elevated the film beyond what was expected from a typical prison drama. One of the most notable aspects of Green Bones is its visual approach. From the moment the film begins, it becomes clear that the filmmakers were determined to make every frame count. The movie's visual style is marked by a rawness and grit that mirrors the story's emotional weight. Director Zig Dulay, who has a reputation for his intimate, atmospheric filmmaking, made conscious decisions to evoke a sense of confinement and claustrophobia, a feeling that suffocates both the characters and the audience. The set design, for instance, plays an integral role in setting the film's tone. The prison, though entirely a set, feels like a living, breathing character in itself. The color palette is muted, dominated by shades of gray and brown that mirror the oppressive atmosphere of the place. There is very little room for light in this world. The cinematography often frames characters in small, cramped spaces, making them appear trapped both physically and psychologically. What's particularly interesting about the film's look is the decision to shoot much of it using handheld cameras. While this technique is commonly used in gritty films to create a sense of immediacy, Green Bones uses it in an almost immersive way. The camera moves with the characters, getting close to their faces, showing their sweat, their eyes filled with fear and determination. This approach draws the viewer deeper into the world of the film, making the emotions of the characters feel immediate and palpable. During intense moments, like the prison riot or scenes where characters must make life-altering decisions, the camera's movements mimic the chaos unfolding around them. But it's not just the riot that makes this technique so effective. It's also used in quieter, more introspective moments, heightening the emotional resonance of the scenes. A close-up shot of Santiago, Dennis Trillo, walking through a hallway, his footsteps echoing, makes us feel his isolation and the burden he carries. Every movement, no matter how small, is heightened through this technique, allowing us to experience the weight of each decision, each moment, alongside the characters. The lighting choices also play a significant role in shaping the tone of Green Bones. A stark contrast is drawn between the oppressive, dimly lit interior of the prison and the flashes of light that appear during moments of emotional revelation. The film often uses harsh, unnatural lighting, casting long shadows that make the prison feel even more suffocating. There's a constant tension between light and darkness, reflecting the moral ambiguity of the characters' choices. No one is truly innocent or guilty. Everyone exists in a gray area, struggling to survive. The lighting, in many ways, visualizes this complexity, making the world feel as morally uncertain as it is physically oppressive. But perhaps one of the most innovative aspects of Green Bones is the sound design. While most films rely on music and score to create an emotional atmosphere, Green Bones stands apart by allowing the soundscape itself to guide the viewer's emotional journey. The use of ambient sound is extraordinary, capturing the hum of the prison, the clink of chains, the murmur of voices echoing down the hallways, the distant clatter of metal. These sounds are so integral to the film's atmosphere that they feel almost as important as the dialogue. There are moments where the ambient noise drowns out the characters' words, placing us fully in their world, where the struggle for survival is louder than anything else. The film's sound designer, who worked tirelessly to create this immersive experience, intentionally leaned into the subtlety of sound. For example, in moments of intense tension, like when Santiago is facing a moral dilemma or when the prisoners are inching toward the inevitable riot, the sound begins to stretch, creating an almost suffocating silence. Then, as the tension breaks, the soundtrack explodes with chaos. Blaring alarms, shouting voices, the sounds of shuffling bodies, and suddenly, the viewer is thrust into the whirlwind of violence and confusion. These sound choices create a seamless flow between the emotional and physical chaos of the story, ensuring that every audience member feels the weight of the characters' internal and external battles. A pivotal part of the film's success lies in its seamless integration of narrative and visuals. There's a profound connection between what we see on screen and what the characters are going through emotionally. The scenes themselves are often simple in terms of action, but the way the filmmakers use visual cues to reflect the characters' internal struggles is what sets Green Bones apart. For example, when Santiago is grappling with his past, the visual cues, like the reflective surfaces he often finds himself staring into, the narrow corridors he walks through, suggest a man trapped not just physically but mentally. His past is always just behind him, lurking in the shadows. The way the camera lingers on these reflections emphasizes that Santiago is constantly haunted, unable to fully escape his memories. It's these kinds of small details that elevate the film's storytelling, making the visual experience as important as the narrative itself. Behind every great film is a team of creators pushing boundaries and testing the limits of what can be achieved with their craft. Green Bones stands out as an example of how creativity, technical mastery, and raw emotion can come together to form something truly remarkable. This cinematic gem didn't just rely on compelling performances and a strong narrative. It also broke new ground in terms of its technical achievements, design innovations, and a seamless blend of storytelling elements that elevated the film beyond what was expected from a typical prison drama. One of the most notable aspects of Green Bones is its visual approach. From the moment the film begins, it becomes clear that the filmmakers were determined to make every frame count. The movie's visual style is marked by a rawness and grit that mirrors the story's emotional weight. Director Zig Dulay, who has a reputation for his intimate, atmospheric filmmaking, made conscious decisions to evoke a sense of confinement and claustrophobia, a feeling that suffocates both the characters and the audience. The set design, for instance, plays an integral role in setting the film's tone. The prison, though entirely a set, feels like a living, breathing character in itself. The color palette is muted, dominated by shades of gray and brown that mirror the oppressive atmosphere of the place. There is very little room for light in this world. The cinematography often frames characters in small, cramped spaces, making them appear trapped both physically and psychologically. What's particularly interesting about the film's look is the decision to shoot much of it using handheld cameras. While this technique is commonly used in gritty films to create a sense of immediacy, Green Bones uses it in an almost immersive way. The camera moves with the characters, getting close to their faces, showing their sweat, their eyes filled with fear and determination. This approach draws the viewer deeper into the world of the film, making the emotions of the characters feel immediate and palpable. During intense moments, like the prison riot or scenes where characters must make life-altering decisions, the camera's movements mimic the chaos unfolding around them. But it's not just the riot that makes this technique so effective. It's also used in quieter, more introspective moments, heightening the emotional resonance of the scenes. A close-up shot of Santiago, Dennis Trillo, walking through a hallway, his footsteps echoing, makes us feel his isolation and the burden he carries. Every movement, no matter how small, is heightened through this technique, allowing us to experience the weight of each decision, each moment, alongside the characters. The lighting choices also play a significant role in shaping the tone of Green Bones. A stark contrast is drawn between the oppressive, dimly lit interior of the prison and the flashes of light that appear during moments of emotional revelation. The film often uses harsh, unnatural lighting, casting long shadows that make the prison feel even more suffocating. There's a constant tension between light and darkness, reflecting the moral ambiguity of the characters' choices. No one is truly innocent or guilty. Everyone exists in a gray area, struggling to survive. The lighting, in many ways, visualizes this complexity, making the world feel as morally uncertain as it is physically oppressive. But perhaps one of the most innovative aspects of Green Bones is the sound design. While most films rely on music and score to create an emotional atmosphere, Green Bones stands apart by allowing the soundscape itself to guide the viewer's emotional journey. The use of ambient sound is extraordinary, capturing the hum of the prison, the clink of chains, the murmur of voices echoing down the hallways, the distant clatter of metal. These sounds are so integral to the film's atmosphere that they feel almost as important as the dialogue. There are moments where the ambient noise drowns out the characters' words, placing us fully in their world, where the struggle for survival is louder than anything else. The film's sound designer, who worked tirelessly to create this immersive experience, intentionally leaned into the subtlety of sound. For example, in moments of intense tension, like when Santiago is facing a moral dilemma or when the prisoners are inching toward the inevitable riot, the sound begins to stretch, creating an almost suffocating silence. Then, as the tension breaks, the soundtrack explodes with chaos. Blaring alarms, shouting voices, the sounds of shuffling bodies, and suddenly, the viewer is thrust into the whirlwind of violence and confusion. These sound choices create a seamless flow between the emotional and physical chaos of the story, ensuring that every audience member feels the weight of the characters' internal and external battles. A pivotal part of the film's success lies in its seamless integration of narrative and visuals. There's a profound connection between what we see on screen and what the characters are going through emotionally. The scenes themselves are often simple in terms of action, but the way the filmmakers use visual cues to reflect the characters' internal struggles is what sets Green Bones apart. For example, when Santiago is grappling with his past, the visual cues, like the reflective surfaces he often finds himself staring into, the narrow corridors he walks through, suggest a man trapped not just physically but mentally. His past is always just behind him, lurking in the shadows. The way the camera lingers on these reflections emphasizes that Santiago is constantly haunted, unable to fully escape his memories. It's these kinds of small details that elevate the film's storytelling, making the visual experience as important as the narrative itself. But technical achievements aren't just limited to the visuals and sound. The practical challenges of filming a movie like Green Bones were numerous. The production had to recreate the complex environment of a prison while balancing the need for narrative freedom. One of the most difficult hurdles was creating the realistic prison riot that serves as one of the most significant moments of the film. While the riot itself was choreographed with the precision of an action film, the filmmakers wanted it to feel grounded in the reality of the prison system. They worked closely with former correctional officers and prison experts to ensure the depiction was both brutal and authentic, staying true to the claustrophobic, chaotic nature of such an event. The cast underwent intensive rehearsals to get the fight choreography right, with actors like Trillo and Ruru Madrid working tirelessly to get every movement in sync. The riot scene, which was shot in a single, long take, was particularly difficult to pull off. Not only did it require extensive planning to make sure all of the actors and extras were in the right places at the right time, but it also required the set to be designed with perfect precision to allow for the frenetic movement required by the scene. Despite the complexities involved, the result was a powerful, harrowing sequence that conveyed the horror of a prison riot without ever feeling staged. The physical demands on the actors were another challenge that came with filming Green Bones. The intense physicality of many of the prison scenes, coupled with the emotional depth of the story, meant that the cast had to be in peak physical and mental condition. The rigorous training for the action sequences, whether it was hand-to-hand combat or the physical exhaustion required during scenes of imprisonment, was grueling, but it paid off in the end. The film's physical realism is undeniable. Every punch thrown, every struggle, feels authentic, as though the actors aren't just performing but truly living the violence and tension that is part of their daily existence in prison. This level of detail extended to the costumes and makeup as well. Every aspect of the film's design was aimed at grounding it in reality. The prisoners' worn, tattered clothes were carefully chosen to reflect the lack of individuality in the prison system. The makeup, subtle but effective, was used to emphasize the characters' weariness. Faces were streaked with dirt and sweat, their eyes hollowed by the mental strain of prison life. These elements work together to reinforce the central theme of the film, that survival in such an environment requires a deep sacrifice of one's humanity. These details are not just background, they're visual markers of the internal and external struggles faced by the characters. In terms of post-production, the editing process was another significant achievement. The film's pacing, especially in the transition between tense, emotionally charged moments and quieter, reflective scenes, was carefully constructed to keep the audience on edge while also allowing for the emotional depth that the story requires. The transitions between past and present were particularly well handled, with the editing creating a seamless flow that allows the viewer to understand the weight of the characters' pasts without interrupting the present-day narrative. The way the editing intertwines with the film's sound design and cinematography further solidifies the experience of Green Bones as a cohesive, fully realized piece of cinema. Through all of these technical achievements and creative innovations, Green Bones remains a testament to the power of storytelling in film. It's not just the performances or the direction that make this film stand out. It's the way every aspect of the production, from set design to sound, lighting, and editing, comes together to create a singular vision. The seamless marriage of style and substance makes Green Bones a film that pushes the boundaries of what's possible, both in terms of emotional depth and technical achievement. Every challenge faced during production, from physical exhaustion to the emotional weight of the story, was met with determination and a commitment to authenticity. The result is a cinematic experience that feels as raw and real as the world it portrays. As Green Bones unravels its complex narrative of survival and redemption, it doesn't just tell a story about life within the confines of a prison. It also explores the deeper themes that resonate far beyond the walls of the institution. The film engages with universal questions of human nature, the cost of survival, and the struggle for redemption, and through its compelling storytelling, it holds up a mirror to the world beyond the screen. The themes and symbolism of Green Bones are intricately woven into every aspect of the film, from its visuals to its characters' journeys, creating a narrative that is rich with layers of meaning. These elements come together in such a way that it feels as though the film is speaking not just to its characters, but to the world we all live in. At its core, Green Bones is a film about survival, specifically the lengths that people will go to in order to stay alive, both physically and emotionally. The story takes place in a world where everything is harsh and unforgiving, where survival isn't just about evading death, but about maintaining some semblance of humanity in the face of overwhelming brutality. This battle to preserve one's soul amidst dehumanization is one of the central struggles in the film. The prisoners in Green Bones are forced to navigate a harsh system that strips them of their identities, their freedom, and their dignity. Yet, even in such a suffocating environment, the film suggests that survival isn't just a matter of physical endurance. It's about holding on to something deeper, something more personal. Santiago, the protagonist, is an embodiment of this theme. His survival is not just about evading violence within the prison, but about reconciling with his past and finding a way to survive emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. This theme of emotional survival in a brutal world is explored through his relationships with other prisoners, particularly Madrid, whom he sees as a younger version of himself. The way he mentors Madrid, offering advice and protection, speaks to his own desperate need for redemption. In guiding Madrid, Santiago tries to protect him from the same painful path that he walked, revealing that his survival is bound up in the hope that others might escape the same fate. This idea of survival also extends to the prison itself. The physical environment is a constant reminder of the dehumanizing system that keeps the prisoners locked in place, both literally and figuratively. The prison is almost a character in its own right, its bleak, gray walls mirroring the hopelessness that many of the characters feel. The cell blocks, with their harsh fluorescent lights, are deliberately designed to look sterile and oppressive, reinforcing the idea that this place is not just a prison for the body but for the soul. The architecture of the space is unyielding, making it clear that the prisoners are not meant to escape. They are meant to be forgotten. It's here, in the shadow of these walls, that the film's exploration of emotional survival becomes most poignant. Every character, from Santiago to the supporting players, must find a way to cope with this suffocating reality. The way they do this, through alliances, small acts of rebellion, or the creation of new identities within the confines of the prison, reveals the lengths to which people will go to maintain their sense of self in the face of institutionalized oppression. Embedded within this theme of survival is a powerful commentary on the human capacity for redemption. Green Bones isn't just about surviving. It's about the possibility of finding redemption in the midst of overwhelming odds. For Santiago, this redemption isn't something that is easily attained. It's not about one heroic act or a simple decision. Instead, it's a slow and painful process that requires him to come to terms with his past mistakes and the role he played in the lives of others. The film explores the idea that redemption is not a gift that can be bestowed upon a person. It's something that must be fought for, often in the most unlikely of places. In this sense, Green Bones critiques the idea of easy forgiveness and highlights the complexity of personal transformation. Santiago's journey toward redemption is messy, full of setbacks and moments of self-doubt, making his ultimate acceptance of responsibility and growth feel earned. The film suggests that redemption is not something that can be granted by an external force. It is something that must come from within. This personal transformation, however, is not an isolated process. It involves relationships, sacrifices, and the recognition of one's flaws and imperfections. Santiago cannot redeem himself in a vacuum. He must reckon with the impact of his actions on those around him. This is especially evident in his relationship with Madrid, who looks up to Santiago as a mentor. Santiago's guidance offers a glimmer of hope, not only for Madrid but for himself as well. It's through his connection with Madrid that he begins to understand the true nature of redemption, not as something that erases the past but as something that requires confronting it head-on. Beyond individual redemption, Green Bones also delves into the ways in which systems, especially those of power and control, shape the lives of those within them. The film subtly critiques the prison system and its ability to destroy individuals while perpetuating cycles of violence. There's a stark, almost nihilistic commentary on how the prison system functions to reinforce societal inequalities and perpetuate a cycle of violence. Prison is portrayed as not just a place for punishment but a mechanism for societal control, designed to crush any hope of individual reform. The characters who find themselves trapped in the system are often those who are already marginalized, often prisoners who have been failed by society long before their incarceration. The film makes a compelling argument about the ways in which the prison system fails to rehabilitate and instead serves to further entrench the struggles of its inhabitants. While some of the characters hold on to hope and fight for change, the overarching message of the film is that the system itself is fundamentally broken. This critique isn't just about the physical conditions of the prison. It's about how the emotional and psychological toll of incarceration often extends far beyond the prison walls. The trauma of the prison system, Green Bones suggests, doesn't just affect the inmates. It affects their families, their communities, and society as a whole. The film leaves the viewer with the sense that, until the cycle of violence and neglect is broken, true redemption may remain out of reach for many. Symbolism plays a crucial role in Green Bones, enriching the narrative and providing deeper insight into its themes. One of the most striking symbols in the film is the recurring imagery of chains and bars. These symbols are, of course, literal representations of imprisonment, but they also serve as metaphors for the internal chains that the characters carry with them. Chains of guilt, regret, and unresolved trauma. For Santiago, the prison bars are not just a physical barrier but a constant reminder of his own limitations and the mistakes he's made in the past. The film repeatedly shows him staring through bars, his face pressed against them, as if seeking some form of escape, not from the prison, but from the moral weight of his actions. This symbolic use of bars and chains speaks to the larger theme of freedom. What does it mean to be free? And is it possible to be free in a system that works tirelessly to keep you in chains, both physically and psychologically? The chains aren't just the metal ones within the prison. They're the ones that hold the characters back from their own sense of self-actualization. Throughout the film, we see characters struggle with their own sense of agency, questioning whether they can ever truly be free from the past or the systems that control them. Another important symbol in Green Bones is the concept of the green bones themselves. While the title might initially seem like an obscure reference, it becomes clear that the phrase holds deep metaphorical significance. The green bones represent something that is at once vital and fragile. Green is the color of life, of growth, and of possibility, yet bones are a symbol of mortality, of what remains after everything else has decayed. The green bones are a metaphor for the human spirit in the face of overwhelming adversity. They are the remnants of something that once was, but they also carry within them the potential for renewal. For the prisoners, particularly Santiago, the green bones represent the tenuous balance between life and death, hope and despair. The bones stand as a reminder that survival is not just about living. It's about what you choose to carry with you, what you allow to define you, and what you are willing to let go of in order to move forward. In terms of social commentary, Green Bones speaks directly to the issues of criminal justice, inequality, and the human condition. It's a film that doesn't just depict the harshness of prison life but uses it as a lens through which to explore the broader societal issues that shape the lives of those incarcerated. The film subtly critiques the ways in which societal systems, police, prisons, and the justice system fail to address the root causes of crime and instead focus solely on punishment. It's a film that asks us to consider what it means to truly reform, not just individuals but the very systems that keep them in cycles of despair and violence. By focusing on the emotional and moral journeys of its characters, Green Bones challenges the viewer to reflect on the nature of justice and the possibility of redemption in a world that often seems unwilling to offer second chances. Ultimately, Green Bones is a film that invites its audience to think deeply about the forces that shape our lives, whether they are internal struggles, external systems, or the complex relationships that bind us to each other. It's a film that examines the price of survival and the cost of redemption, while also reflecting on the possibility of healing and change. Through its rich symbolism and nuanced exploration of societal issues, Green Bones becomes a mirror, reflecting not just the reality of life behind bars, but the truths about our own world that we often overlook. Green Bones is a film that not only tells a gripping, emotionally resonant story but also takes full advantage of its cinematic tools to immerse the audience in its world. The director, Zig Dulay, demonstrates an astute understanding of how to use visuals, sound, and editing to heighten the emotional and narrative impact of the film. Through careful choices in cinematography, innovative sound design, and a unique visual style, the film becomes an experience that is as much felt as it is watched. Dulay's ability to blend these elements together, seamlessly intertwining technical expertise with powerful storytelling, is what elevates Green Bones from a traditional prison drama into a profound exploration of humanity under pressure. The film's visual style is one of the first aspects that strikes viewers, establishing the tone right from the opening sequence. Dulay employs a muted color palette throughout, with heavy reliance on grays, browns, and harsh artificial lighting. This is not just a stylistic choice. It's a statement about the environment that the characters inhabit. The colors of the prison itself, gray walls, flickering fluorescent lights, and cold, industrial architecture, are visually oppressive. They convey the desolate, emotionally drained atmosphere of a system designed to dehumanize. These visual elements are crucial in setting the mood and illustrating the emotional landscape of the characters. The sterile, uninviting spaces in the prison become almost claustrophobic, pushing the audience to feel the characters' confinement, not only physically but also mentally and emotionally. The cinematography in Green Bones is intentionally tight and claustrophobic. Cinematographer Jay Duriez, in collaboration with Dulay, uses close-ups and mid-shots to create a sense of intimacy and suffocation, forcing the viewer to focus on the emotional turmoil of the characters. There is a constant tension between the camera's proximity to the characters and the sense of emotional distance they feel from the world. The camera often hovers just inches from their faces, capturing the raw vulnerability and exhaustion in their eyes. In the hands of Zig Dulay and his creative team, Green Bones becomes more than just a prison drama. It is a masterclass in visual storytelling. By using the camera, sound, and editing in ways that deepen the emotional resonance of the story, Green Bones transcends the genre and becomes an immersive experience. The visual and auditory elements are not just complementary to the narrative. They are integral to it. Through these cinematic techniques, Dulay crafts a world that feels as real as it is haunting, where every frame, every sound, and every movement serves to draw the viewer deeper into the lives of the characters and the powerful themes they embody. The heart of Green Bones lies not only in its powerful story, but in the deeply felt performances that bring the characters to life. The chemistry between the cast members, especially the lead actors, plays a significant role in making the relationships and emotional struggles resonate with the audience. The connection between Santiago, Dennis Trillo, and Madrid, Ruru Madrid, forms the emotional core of the film, with their performances guiding the story's exploration of survival, guilt, and redemption. Their dynamic isn't just a simple mentor-mentee relationship. It is one rooted in shared trauma and the complexity of their pasts, brought vividly to life through the actors' chemistry. Their relationship evolves throughout the film, and each scene between them is infused with the kind of raw emotional depth that feels almost tangible. Dennis Trillo's portrayal of Santiago is one of the film's standout performances. Santiago is a man haunted by his past mistakes and a long history of violence, and Trillo captures the internal conflict of the character in every frame. His portrayal is one of quiet intensity, with each glance and subtle gesture conveying a depth of emotion that words often fail to articulate. What's remarkable is the way he balances this brooding, tortured quality with moments of tenderness and vulnerability, particularly in his scenes with Ruru Madrid's character. Santiago's connection with Madrid is complicated by his own guilt and the realization that he might have the chance to make amends for his past mistakes. Trillo brings nuance to the role, embodying the character's emotional journey in a way that feels authentic and profoundly human. Ruru Madrid, on the other hand, plays Madrid with a palpable sense of youthful energy and vulnerability, offering a contrast to Santiago's more hardened demeanor. As a younger, more idealistic character, Madrid is eager to learn and to survive, yet his idealism is quickly tested by the harsh realities of prison life. Madrid's bond with Santiago is pivotal in the film, and Madrid's chemistry with Trillo helps the relationship evolve in ways that feel organic and unforced. Madrid brings a natural charm and sincerity to his role, creating a character who, though often naive, holds the possibility of redemption. His chemistry with Trillo provides a stark contrast between Santiago's burdened, broken soul and Madrid's hope for a better future. This contrast, yet simultaneous connection, creates an emotional tension that propels the film forward, making the audience deeply invested in the two characters' individual arcs and their shared journey. Behind the scenes, it's clear that the chemistry between the two leads wasn't just confined to the script. In interviews, both Trillo and Madrid have spoken about the camaraderie they shared on set, which translated into their performances. Their on-screen bond was forged through long hours of rehearsal and an understanding that their characters needed each other to fully bring the story to life. Trillo has shared that his connection with Madrid grew from a place of mutual respect and trust, as they both understood how crucial their relationship was to the film's emotional depth. Madrid, too, has mentioned that he found Trillo's approach to the role both inspiring and humbling, and that Trillo's mentorship on and off-screen allowed him to push his performance to a higher level. The natural rapport between the two actors, coupled with their dedication to their craft, created a sense of authenticity in their scenes that left a lasting impact on the audience. The supporting cast, while perhaps not as heavily featured as Trillo and Madrid, also plays a crucial role in fleshing out the world of Green Bones. The interactions between the ensemble cast, prison guards, fellow inmates, and those who play pivotal roles in the prison's internal hierarchy help to build the tension and atmosphere that makes the world feel real. Characters like Marlon, played by a highly respected supporting actor, serve as foils to Santiago, embodying a certain cynical acceptance of the prison's brutality. Marlon's performances are sharp and commanding, creating a character who sees the world through a lens of survivalism, but who also offers moments of profound reflection, often revealing a side of the prison system that's hard to ignore. The juxtaposition of Marlon's pragmatism against Santiago's idealism adds layers to the thematic weight of the film, and these relationships, though less prominent, enrich the main storyline in a way that resonates throughout the entire narrative. The behind-the-scenes dynamics of Green Bones were also crucial to creating the raw, immersive atmosphere of the film. Director Zig Dulay has spoken about the challenges of filming in such a confined, tense setting. The majority of the movie takes place within the confines of the prison, and the sets were designed to evoke a sense of isolation and entrapment. The production team used real locations, paired with detailed set design, to craft spaces that felt oppressive and suffocating. In interviews, Dulay has shared how he encouraged the actors to get comfortable with the physicality of the prison, from the way they moved through the tight spaces to how they interacted with the architecture around them. This attention to detail not only helped the actors immerse themselves in their roles, but also allowed the audience to experience the prison's physical and psychological constraints in a visceral way. The set design and location choices, therefore, weren't just aesthetic decisions, they were integral to the storytelling itself, reinforcing the sense of confinement that pervades the film. The claustrophobic environment of the prison was also a key component in how the film was shot. To capture the sense of confinement, the cinematographer Jay Duriez often used narrow corridors and tight framing, positioning the characters in corners or against walls to amplify the feeling of being boxed in. Behind the scenes, Duriez and Dulay made the decision to shoot many of the film's most pivotal moments in one continuous take. This decision created an immediacy and intensity that was enhanced by the actors' chemistry, and in scenes where the tension was palpable, the long takes allowed the emotional stakes to unfold without interruption. The decision to minimize cuts in key moments of emotional conflict gave the actors the freedom to fully inhabit their characters, making every exchange between Santiago and Madrid feel raw and authentic. Audience reactions to Green Bones were overwhelmingly positive, with particular praise for the depth of the performances and the film's emotional complexity. Viewers were struck by how the relationship between Santiago and Madrid resonated on a personal level, with many audiences noting that the film's exploration of mentorship, guilt, and redemption felt deeply human. The chemistry between the two leads became a central talking point in online discussions and reviews, with viewers highlighting how their evolving dynamic captured the essence of what it means to survive in an oppressive system, while still striving to retain one's humanity. The strength of this relationship, along with the film's gritty realism, made Green Bones not just a thrilling drama, but a meditation on what it means to confront one's past and find a way forward. Critics also praised the film's ability to strike a balance between emotional depth and suspense. Many noted how the film used the prison setting not just as a backdrop for action, but as a living, breathing entity that shaped the characters' experiences. This ability to infuse an otherwise familiar setting with such emotional weight was a testament to the collaborative effort of the cast and crew. Reviewers pointed out that the performances elevated the material, with Trillo and Madrid's chemistry being at the forefront of this success. The audience's emotional investment in the characters was felt not only during the dramatic scenes but also in the quieter, more intimate moments where the relationship between the two leads truly flourished. One of the long-term reactions to the film has been the lasting impact it had on its fanbase. Fans of Green Bones often take to social media and forums to discuss the film's themes and characters in great detail, and a strong community has developed around it. Fans frequently share their favorite quotes from the film, dissect character arcs, and analyze the subtle symbolic elements woven throughout the story. This kind of engagement speaks to the film's lasting cultural resonance and its ability to spark thoughtful conversations. Green Bones has earned a dedicated following, particularly among those who appreciate films that not only entertain but also challenge the audience to think critically about the world they live in. Another long-term impact of the film is its exploration of the complex dynamics of prison life, which has led to increased discussions about the treatment of inmates in real-world prison systems. Critics and audiences alike have commended Green Bones for tackling these difficult issues with nuance and sensitivity, without falling into the trap of glamorizing or simplifying the prison experience. The film's portrayal of the prison system as a place of both dehumanization and potential redemption sparked important conversations about justice, reform, and the need for rehabilitation, making Green Bones a cultural touchstone for those interested in the intersection of cinema and social issues. In the years since its release, Green Bones has continued to be celebrated for its powerful performances, emotional depth, and thought-provoking themes. It's a film that not only resonates in the moment but continues to inspire dialogue and reflection long after the credits roll. Through the chemistry between its cast, the meticulous set dynamics, and the audience's enthusiastic reception, Green Bones has firmly established itself as a modern classic, an example of how film can both entertain and challenge viewers in profound ways. The impact of the film on its audience speaks to the universal truths it captures: the longing for redemption, the brutality of oppressive systems, and the hope that, even in the most confined spaces, humanity can still find a way to survive. Green Bones has transcended the expectations of a typical prison drama, leaving an indelible mark on both the genre and the wider film industry. Released in December 2024, it didn't just capture audiences with its hard-hitting performances and nuanced storytelling, but also sparked a wider conversation about the role of cinema in shaping our understanding of social systems and human nature. As time has passed, it's become evident that Green Bones is not just a fleeting moment in the landscape of contemporary film. It has cemented itself as a cultural milestone with lasting significance. Its influence extends beyond the confines of its genre, leaving an imprint on the filmmaking process itself, and rippling into pop culture in ways that few films can claim. The power of Green Bones lies in its ability to navigate the dark, claustrophobic world of the prison, while elevating the human elements at the core of its story. The film is not merely a depiction of life behind bars. It's a deep, intimate examination of guilt, redemption, and survival in a world where hope is often suffocated by oppression. It's a testament to the fact that, even in a confined space, a filmmaker can create vast emotional and thematic resonance. As a prison drama, Green Bones manages to break away from the traditional tropes that typically define the genre. While it does not shy away from the violence and corruption that permeate many stories set in prisons, it does so with an eye toward emotional depth rather than mere sensationalism. Unlike many films that sensationalize prison life or rely on brute force to tell their stories, Green Bones introduces complex, fully realized characters, whose struggles are shaped by their circumstances rather than the stereotypes often associated with the genre. It offers a perspective rarely seen in similar films, one that brings empathy, introspection, and moral complexity to the forefront. This shift in focus has had a ripple effect, inspiring other filmmakers in the prison drama genre to take a more nuanced approach to storytelling. The film's ability to balance these heavy thematic elements with rich, visceral performances is perhaps one of its greatest accomplishments. Dennis Trillo's portrayal of Santiago and Ruru Madrid's turn as Madrid have set a new standard for acting in this type of drama. Their chemistry, full of vulnerability and restraint, shows that a film can explore the depths of its characters without resorting to melodrama or overwrought sentimentality. The way their performances mirror the pain of confinement, both literal and emotional, has become a touchstone for other actors in the genre. In the years following Green Bones' release, many performances in prison-based dramas have sought to emulate the raw, understated intensity that Trillo and Madrid brought to their roles, marking a shift in how these films are made.